My name is Richard Cusick. I own a artisan confection and pastry shop in Valparaiso, Indiana. Does everyone know where Indiana is? Some people don't. They're like, where the heck is that? Um, my background, I've been cooking since I was 13. It's kind of a sad story. I actually have a major in high school in food service. I found out about the Culinary Institute of America, so I graduated there in 1984. I worked in a lot of restaurants in Chicago, like Charlie Trotter's. I was a pastry chef, Ambria, Everstrom, Maxime de Paris, a bunch of other places. I started teaching in Chicago at Cordon Bleu. I did savory, pastry, and sanitation. How many people are food scientists here? Not that kind of sanitation, just kind of junior sanitation at that time. So while I was teaching at school, one of my students was a food scientist. I started doing consulting work. I found out about a world of food I knew nothing about. Instead of making 10 of something, these people were making like 1,000,000 of something. That was so intriguing to me. So I got a few other jobs. I worked at Keebler and Kellogg's. I was assigned to their Blue Sky team. I did a lot of innovation. I got to work with some really cool chocolate experts, a lot of PhD people, and some amazing marketing people that were whiz kids in marketing. I got a job at Sara Lee. I did a lot of product development, more in the bakery side, and then I did a lot of national chain account work. There's a lot of products out there I worked on you guys enjoy today. Probably the best one I worked on that's still out there today is the ciabatta sandwich at Starbucks. Has anyone ever had that one? That's the cool part about working with food. You can go, man, that's mine. Do you ever do that? You walk in a place and you're like, you're touching that. I did that. That's the motivation for me. It's really cool to see people enjoy kind of product you're working on. Got a job at Barry Callebaut's in Chicago. They opened up their headquarters in Chicago. My job there was technical advisor, so if you had an issue with chocolate, I would go around. I was in charge of North America, South America, and Canada. So if you used chocolate and you had some problem, I would go help you out. Most of it was your fault, not the chocolate. I never once found out it was the chocolate's fault, but that's usually why I got a phone call. They're like, your chocolate is this, and I'm like, really? So that was my job there. I had a few other jobs in between. I was the director of research development at Garrett Popcorn. Does anyone like Garrett Popcorn? Look at you. Oh my God. It's amazing. $32 a tin. That's a good food cost on that thing. So, and then 51, I wanted to hang out with my wife and my 2 kids, kind of retired. So I opened up a little pastry shop. It's called Evolution Artisan Confections. If you guys look on your phone after this is all over, you can see what I do, some photos of my stuff. And I do consulting. I have a company called Evolution Concepts. So today, I'm here to show you guys how to. You got a little recipe card in front of you. We're going to be showing you kind of a live demo on popcorn almond chocolate ball. So who works with chocolate in their job on a daily basis? Anyone? Where do you work? Where do you work? What? I love Wisconsin. Yeah, hey. Okay. So the first thing we want to talk about is like how we came up with this concept. The Almond Board said, hey, we want to come up with an on-trend confection. So I'm from Valparaiso, Indiana. Does anyone know what's special about Valparaiso? That's where Over Redenbacher is from. So I have a lot of credibility in popcorn. If you don't know, Over Redenbacher was a food scientist that came up with microwave popcorn. And then does anyone reduce food where they work? Reduce food? You guys know Urschel? Nobody? Urschel? Urschel, so that's where it's manufactured. All that equipment, that very expensive equipment is manufactured in Valparaiso, Indiana. So the first thing I thought about is combining a really nice chocolate with almonds. They're two kind of things that go really well together. The indulgence of chocolate, the health that comes with chocolate, but the health that comes with aspects that come with almonds, and the texture that almonds could give to chocolate. The Almond Board is an amazing California Almond Board, amazing group. They do tremendous amount of research. One of those pieces they've done recently really talks about consumers saying to the Almond Board people that the perfect nut that goes with chocolate is almond. And for me, I use almonds all over my shop. I'm not just someone, hey, use almonds. I use almonds. They vetted me, believe me. So I've got two formats of almonds here today. One is the skin-on almond, which I toasted. The food science part, I don't ever like to be in front of a group of food scientists because they could just stomp on me anytime they want. But I'll try to give you my science background, a little bit about chocolate, and a little about working with chocolate and almonds. So the first thing, how do people toast almonds? A lot of times, they deep fry them. They just dunk them in fat like French fries. So if you're going to mix almonds with chocolate, you have to make sure you have a compatible fat. So chocolate is non-lauric. Is everyone non-lauric? Okay. So you need to use a non-lauric fat if you're going to deep fry them. Chocolate will tolerate about a 5% contamination of a lauric fat to a non-lauric fat. So if you do your calculations, you can, if you calculate that correctly. If you don't, you'll have shelf life issues like crazy. Your chocolate will bloom over time. Those two fats repel each other. And there's vivid examples out there in the marketplace. If you see a product that starts to push away from itself, they have two kinds. A lot of people will bottom enrobe with a compound that has a lauric fat, and then they'll top enrobe with a real chocolate that is non-lauric, and you'll start to see that problem have shelf life issues down the road. Reese is a good example too. You know how Reese is really soft? That's a non-lauric lauric fat combination that's a problem. So you get some kind of sweating of the fat. The other almond I use today is a slivered almond. This is a kind of a garnish for the outside. It lets people know what's on the inside. It gives a nice texture, and it gives you that almond flavor right away. You got to think, the thing about food manufacturing sometimes that's an issue is layering of flavors, because once you package it, all those flavors kind of meld together. So if you can put something like this on the outside, it's the first thing that hits your palate when you eat, so that it really gets your sensory going. The popcorn I'm using is really special. For this type of purpose. So I did a lot of work at Garrett Popcorn about popcorn research, and learned a lot about popcorn. So I'm using a variety that pops into do you guys know there's butterfly and mushroom types or varieties of popcorn? Who knows that? Okay. So you want to choose the variety that pops. I always thought you could just go buy this field right here is the butterfly, and this is this field over here is the mushroom. It's not true. They tend to pop in this format. So I'm using one that is a mushroom. So it's the one without the wings. If you're going to eat popcorn by itself with nothing on it, so just butter or something, I would choose the butterfly over the mushroom because it's a little more delicate and it eats a little better. But if I have to mix, abuse the popcorn, if I'm tumbling it, putting seasonings on it, I'm doing something where I have to abuse it, I would always choose to use a variety that's a little more sturdy like the mushroom, okay? I also air pop this popcorn. So at the end of the day, you have a concept that is, and I'll reiterate this at the end, but it kind of hits on like the trifecta of goodness when you're doing product development. The first thing I have is something that is indulgent. I've got almonds, I've got chocolates, I've got something healthy as well. I've got popcorn, almonds, and chocolate. They're all, maybe they have connotations of being healthy, but certainly there's validation for health on almonds. There's some validation on health on the chocolate as well. Everyone say hi to Leanne. She's passing around some chocolate popcorn balls, so you can try them while I'm demoing. Okay, so next. Does anyone feel real comfortable about hand tempering chocolates? Raise your hand. I'm like, no problemo. Anyone need help? Raise your hand. Okay, so a lot of times when I would run into my job out there, people would have issues with hand tempering or doing a small batch of chocolate. So I thought I would teach you guys how to reverse temper chocolate. Has anyone heard of that? Reverse tempering? Okay, so the whole idea here, I've got some chocolate in the microwave here. I know probably can't see the microwave, but so I've got some chocolate. Oh, I forgot to talk about the chocolate. Super special. It's a chocolate from Barry Callebaut. They have a brand from Belgium called Callebaut. It's their Belgian entity. So this one is a Kumabo. It's a blend of origin chocolates from really cool places like Tanzania, Ghana, and Sao Tome. So what they do is they find the best beans. They are watched the entire process to make sure that they are special. They blend them, and then they go through that amazing factory in Wiesa. What's interesting about this is the cacao percentage. It's 80%. Does everyone know what that means? It was a big educational piece when I worked at Barry Callebaut. All that tells you is it has 20% sugar. There's nothing else you can learn by that number. It's really a marketing thing, no offense. It's just telling you how much sugar's in there. It's 20% sugar. The number 80, you calculate three things to get that number. It's cocoa butter, the solid material, and cocoa powder. So if you're doing it just cleanly, you don't put any cocoa powder. To me, it's a cheaper commodity to use to boost the flavor of the chocolate. But to me, it degrades the chocolate as being like as sexy as it could be. So people are very interested these days about where is this stuff coming from? Is this an origin chocolate? They call out the cacao percentage. The consumer, I think they think the higher it is, the better it is, but that's really not the point. It's less sweet. So this is at 80%. So when you eat this, it should be very strong. Who likes milk chocolate? And that's all I like, milk chocolate. So it's really strong for you. It's like having espresso. But if you look at the numbers, the Almond Board can help you out with this too. The amount of dark is really on an upswing, and they have awesome data to back that up. I'm going to say this too before I forget. The one thing that people don't do enough in their daily jobs is utilize people like the Almond Board of California. They spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and do their due diligence and research about almonds. You would be remiss if you didn't go to their booth, 1902, after this is over, and contact one of the marketing people. They're amazing. And say, hey, I'm working on something almond. Can you help me? They will flood you with whatever you need. If you're trying to sell your concept to another customer, they will help you validate why your concept's so amazing with research. And sometimes the companies you work for don't have the monies to do the research. Rely on your suppliers, rely on people like the Almond Board that can really help you do that, okay? All right, let's work on the chocolate. So, are you nervous about microwaving chocolates? I would never ever put chocolate over a double boiler. Who does that? I will find you. Do not do that. If you do a thermal camera on that, the water, what temperature is the water? Usually boiling. If you want to use a water bath, it should be 150, but we're Americans. We want everything to melt like in 2 seconds. Melt, melt, melt. What do you mean? You're not melting. Fire, fire, melt, fast, fast. It doesn't work that way. What happens is the steam will go on the side of the pot. What happens to steam when it gets cool? Condenses into water, falls right back in your pot. You used to call me up when I worked at Barry Callebaut and said, your viscosity of your chocolate is not right. It's what you did to it. You probably contaminated it with water, okay? When we temper chocolate, it's really a bad word. I'm going to start melting the chocolate in 30-second increments. It's a 900-watt microwave. If you've got the super deluxe microwave, just reduce the amount of time. The first go, though, you can go pretty good. You can go like 30 seconds for a small batch. I've got a very small batch. What a lot of people make the mistake when they do the microwave is microwave too long at once. Chocolate will burn in a microwave very easily. So you just want to start it to melt. Once it starts to melt, you can, do smaller increments of time. We're trying to reach a temperature to decrystallize the chocolate. So really the word tempering is really not a good word. When you work with chocolate, all you're doing is manipulating the fat. At the factory, what they've done is aligned fat crystals. You're looking for a good structure, a beta 5 structure with chocolate. What you do when you melt it is you unfurl all these crystal structure. The temperature that does that for dark chocolate is around 115 to 120 degrees. So make sure you hit that number, 115 to 120. Validate it with a probe. In between each microwaving sessions, look, nothing happened. I just want to stir it so I don't have any hot spots. So I'm going to give it 30 seconds again. The whole idea here is that we never decrystallize the chocolate. Sorry, I got to look at this to do it. It's not my microwave. So the whole idea here is that we're going to just melt the chocolate enough so that about 10% of it is still solid. At that point, we're going to take it out and stir it. We're going to use the residual heat we built up in the microwave to melt the last 10%. Here's the key thing. If you learn one thing today, it's this number, 93 degrees. 93 degrees. I don't ever want to see the mass go above 93 degrees. At 93 degrees, you will melt beta 5 crystals. The beta 5 crystal is a crystal we want when the chocolate sets. Am I making sense? Okay. So here's the second 30 seconds. Let's see if anything happens. It feels different and it's getting a little shiny, but nothing really happened, okay? So I'm going to give it another 30 seconds. How's the popcorn ball? Does anyone like it? Do we like it or no? Okay. Chefs are very visual. They need hand signals. Yes, ma'am. I'm melting this chocolate to 115 to 1. Oh, milk, you could probably take it to 115, but I work with it around 110. White chocolate, I wouldn't go above 105. You'll start to crystallize the milk solids. Okay, we've got a minute and a half on about a pound of chocolate, maybe a pound. Look what happened here. Can you see? Look, some is melted. Okay, the goal here is to melt about 90%, still have 10% solid. This is reverse tempering. I'm never going to go above 93 degrees. If I probed it, it's 90 degrees just real quick. I don't trust this thing. It has to be like 3 times in a row, same number, and then I trust it, okay? So I'm giving it a good stir. I'm going to go back inside for another 30 seconds because I feel pretty confident. I've done this a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4, 100,000. It's like riding a bike. If you temper chocolate, if you're taught how to temper chocolate, you need to do it like every day for a whole week. And then it becomes like riding a bike. And you start to feel the chocolate. Every chocolate's a little different because of the amount of fat that's in the chocolate as well. This chocolate here is a very fluid chocolate I'm using. If you're working with mud, there's some chocolates out there that you melt it. It's like I could spackle a wall with this stuff. It's very difficult to hand temper the chocolate. You need something with some fluidity, okay? Okay, look. I'm almost there. I'm at a scary point in this though, because if you get this mass above 93 degrees, what you have to do? You have to start over, or what you really have to do is now seed the chocolate. You have to put unmelted chocolate in there. Okay, so if I were to ascertain how much of this is still solid, I would say maybe 15%, 15, 20%. Can you tell? I don't know if you can see. There's still solid chunks in there, see? Can you nod or go like this? Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go one more. I'm going to go reduce my time now to 10 seconds because I'm on the scary part of this. So past 93 degrees, what you would do then is you're going to add about maybe 10% weight if it's just right above 93 degrees in unmelted chocolates and do exactly what I'm going to do here. But this is called reverse tempering. And this is for like if I was working in a food science lab, I've got to make some hand samples real quick. I don't want to go in the plant and get some chocolate, or I want to do it really quickly instead of using a marble slab or doing a seeding method. I'll just do it this way real quick because I'm working with a small quantity of chocolate. This would never be used in production. It's just to make samples, okay? So look, if I go by that mic thing, it's going to be bad though. I'll show one person. I'll show you. Can you say your name?
Abdu.
Abdu. That's a very cool name. Can you see there's just little chunks left?
Yep.
Okay. So Abdu validated that that's the case. Okay, now all I have to do is stir a whole bunch to melt the rest of the mass. Can you see? Okay. If you temper chocolate like the 10,000 rule, like 10,000 times, and you work with the same chocolate, you can just tell. It looks a certain way. It feels a certain way when you stir it. A lot of times in a factory, I worked with some pretty big chocolate manufacturers, and they get a temper meter out, and sometimes they have problems with chocolate maybe in transit where a truck got too cold or too hot, the chocolate decrystallized or got some moisture on it or something like that. A good way to check your machine real quick, if your tempering machine, if you know it's working right or you got your numbers set right or anything's a problem, you need to go hand temper some chocolate. If you can't hand temper the chocolate, it doesn't work. There's probably a problem with the chocolate. Out of my 5 years I worked at Barry Callebaut, that was never, ever the case. Ever. I got so many people said, your chocolate is messed up. We validate. Every chocolate company is the same. And any chocolate company you can name, nothing leaves a factory without extensive testing. So, uninvited guests. So right now I'm at 92 degrees. I'm living life on the edge. So now all I have to do is get this down to working temperature. Does anyone know what the working temperature of chocolate is? Dark chocolate? Working temperature? Nobody? What is it? 90 is exactly the right number. So anywhere between 88 and 90, I can work with the chocolate or use the chocolate. Okay? So how do we know this is crystallized correctly or tempered, what people say? I can just take a little piece of parchment paper, dip in the chocolate, let it sit on the table. If it sets within 2-3 minutes and it's shiny, it's good to go. You don't have to get a temper meter out or anything and measure the amount of crystals that are in the chocolate. You can just do it by how fast it sets. You cannot work with chocolate. This is another huge thing. What temperature is the room you're working with? Has to be around 70 degrees. If your lab is not conditioned, you cannot work with chocolate. As simple as that. There's no other way to say it. Okay? So now, the two ingredients I'm going to use is the popcorn and the almonds. This is very important. Another thing you can learn today, I kind of developed when I worked there, is 10 degrees. Just, you have a t-shirt that should say 10 degrees. Okay? If I'm going to mix something with chocolate, it has to be within 10 degrees of the chocolate. I should never abuse the chocolate by abusing it by more than 10 degrees. For example, in the summer when you have a can of pop or soda in the refrigerator and you take it out into your car and it's 90 degrees outside, what happens to the outside of the can? It sweats. Well, that's what happens when you go 10 degrees more, temperature change quickly with chocolate, okay? If you do more than 10 degrees, you'll get some moisture buildup on the outside of your chocolate or the product you're mixing it with. If you noticed long-term shelf life issues, it was probably the way you produced or cooled the chocolate in the first place. Pristinely made, cooled, handled chocolate should last a very long time. So a lot of times when you don't make your shelf life, you start to see blooming or some issues with the chocolate. It is always probably something with moisture contamination or temperature abuse. Somehow the storage temperature was abused. I love data trackers. I never knew what data trackers were. I'm in love with data trackers. It's one thing food scientists taught me is to validate with data, okay? So my chocolate now, let's check it. Oh my God, this room temperature is perfect. I'm right at 91 degrees now. I'm gonna look at my substrate that I'm folding in. It's 71 degrees. It's how much colder? 20. Bad. So what I would do with this is I would take like a heat gun, like a paint stripper heat gun, not a hair dryer. Don't bring one in the lab. It's bad mojo. Okay, but like a Stanley, something at Home Depot or something. And you just wave it, toss, wave, toss, wave. Get this stuff within 10 degrees. Don't overheat this though. If you heat it too much, it'll decrystallize your chocolate. Not good. The nuts, the same thing, okay? So this is very simple. I'm just going to mix my almonds with my popcorn. I'm going to use a silicone mold. This is really cool. It's really containment for my popcorn ball. It's not, I want to give this a very rustic look, so it doesn't look like it was manufactured so much. But you know, if you're working by hand in your factory, there's a lot of people out there now, they're like, hey, there's good mojo about making something look handmade. You guys agree? So if I can try to do that with my product, that's what we're trying to do, is give it that kind of, I didn't make 2 million of them today feeling. I want it to look a little bit more kind of, look at these sexy black gloves. Someone laughed. I got one person to laugh. I think when you do a demo, if you can get someone to laugh, it's a good deal. Okay. So I'm going to have an exact measurement of chocolate I'm putting in here. It's a way more than you think because the popcorn is kind of absorbent of chocolate. And one must work fast at this point because your room's 70 degrees, so you're going to cool down. It's not a good deal. These are the best bowls ever. I got these at Crate and Barrel. I love Crate and Barrel. They're like $10. They microwave like crazy, got the rubber bottom on there. They don't squash around or anything. This smells, can you smell this? I know you probably can't, but I smell it really well. It smells really good. This is good to have another person with you to help out. Leanne, can you help me? I'd love to have you help me. Come on, Leanne. I'm not very good looking. If you're next to me, it makes me look better looking or something like that. I don't know. Okay, so the next thing, look, Leanne. Put that on. And then this is Leanne. Everyone say hello to Leanne. She's really helped me a lot to bring this demo to life, so I'm kind of paying it back. Maybe not. She's upset with me. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so I'm just going to deposit and try to just contain them. And Leanne's just going to sprinkle a few almonds on top. A few almonds. She works with the Almond Board. Sorry. So she's like, put a lot. Just a little bit. Just a little. There you go. Perfect. Okay, then we would just continue on and on. Wait, let me get all of them. Hold on. You're too fast. Okay, and I would even go back and just kind of manipulate them a little bit. So now some people out there might going, well, how do I turn this into a manufacturable product? A lot of times when I do work like this is inspirational. So the idea here is, okay, that's all we'll make. Everyone say, thank you, Leanne. So what I wanted you to get out of this idea is someone like the Almond Board came to me and tasked me with this idea of coming up with a healthy, indulgent snack. Almonds are amazingly popular in chocolate. So how do I take that and make it into a concept? First thing, I'm like surrounded by cornfields right now. The corn is growing like crazy, and it was kind of inspirational to me. Sometimes you can just open your eyes, look around, and say, wow, what's close to my world that people like? And I'm like, people love popcorn. There's some caramel popcorn out there somewhere. I was smelling it today. It smells amazing. So they want something healthy, something indulgent, something small snack type of product. So that I put those three things together in something that's very simple. There's companies like Solich out there. I saw Solich has a booth over here. Maybe not here, another show. But Solich makes some clustering equipment that could actually do something like this in a manufacturing context. So this is actually something that could be done. So we'll let this set. What I would do is kind of force cool this. And you have to be very gentle with forced cooling. Dark chocolate needs no more than 6 to 8 minutes of cooling. The temperature should be, if you're using like a cooling tunnel, 10 degrees, 10 degrees, 10 degrees, 10 degrees out, okay? So 6 or 8 minutes of tunnel time. If you're doing this in the lab, I would put it in a 40-degree fridge for maybe 3 or 4 minutes just to get it to set. What you're concerned about is latent heat. As chocolate cools, it creates heat. That heat will decrystallize your chocolate if you don't manage it. So that's really what you're trying to do. Okay? Does anyone have any questions? Is it possible to, Leanne, we actually have a microphone. I always think it's interesting to hear other people's questions, but really hear them so you know what she said. But don't be embarrassed. I want you to ask questions. Oh, before I forget, 1902, Almond Board booth. They have amazing people over there. They're doing, John Cuskor, my buddy's over there doing food, different every day. You have to go over there and try their samples. Talk to the marketing ladies over there. They have phenomenal research for you. And they would love to help you in your almond endeavor. Is that a good way to say it? I don't know if that's good or not. Okay.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Your ingredients in this case were 20 degrees cooler because you didn't have something to heat them up with. How is that going to affect the end product? In fact, when it makes it that cool, does that influence how quickly that chocolate will set up? Maybe you don't need to
That's
stick
a
it in the
really
fridge.
good question. She's saying maybe I don't need the cooling. You can see already, look, it's starting to get solid. See this one right here? You're absolutely correct. What I'm worried about is shelf life. You will diminish your shelf life if you try to force cool something too quickly. What you're doing is shoving the fat crystals together too quickly. They need to be gently. So when you work with compound, you try to cool that stuff as fast as you can. You shove the fat together, fat crystals. With cocoa butter, it's a very persnickety fat. It wants to go together just in a very even pace, so it can make a nice connection. If you work with large chocolate manufacturers, they will not package anything for 24 hours. It takes 24 hours to completely crystallize cocoa butter. So some of the larger people that make bonbons, for example, I won't tell you who, but they let the chocolate sit for 24 hours before they pack it. So there's latent heat you have to worry about. Okay? Does that help you?
Yes, that's great. And one more question. What percentage of fat was in that chocolate? Because as you mentioned, there's chocolates and chocolates.
Yeah, I don't know the spec. Let me see.
Or what do you recommend is another way of asking.
I always talk about, my job all the time was showing people the right chocolate for the right function. So if I'm making something where the chocolate is the hero, I have to use a nice chocolate. And I want something fluid, so because I have to do a lot of mixing, so I use a chocolate with a good fluidity. What's really crazy about the chocolate industry right now is that there's two different ways to measure the viscosity. One is McMichael's, one is centipoise. And the Europeans use centipoise. It's very on point. I mean, who uses a stopwatch in a gate and a go? And that's ridiculous. It has to be centipoise. And the Americans won't jump on board. I mean, the specs at Barry Callebaut have both. It's crazy. But you'll start to, if you work with chocolate a lot, you'll understand what the fluidity is in regards to centipoise or McMichael, the MM you see on there. Barry Callebaut came up with a real simple way for chefs. It was for chefs. And it's 5 drops. 1 drop is mud, 5 drop is water. So this is a 3-dropper. It's good for everything. It makes bonbons, it can make cakes, cookies, whatever you want. So it's right in the middle of the road with fat. But as a manufacturer, you can add fat, you can buy cocoa butter. Or the manufacturer, what's really crazy, what people don't know, they go, I want dark chocolate. And I would say, what kind? We have about 4,000 of them. I'm not kidding you. Barry Callebaut has 10,000 SKUs. 10,000. If you think you have 200 and it's a hassle, they have 10,000. And every other chocolate company has about the same amount of number. So they have a chocolate for every use. If you should also, like you would use the Almond Board for research. If you're buying anything from anybody, you should use their company. They all have marketing people. They all have culinary people. Let them do some work for you. I'm really saddened to see all the people that don't utilize the assets in front of them. So you're welcome. Anyone else? Don't be shy. If you want, you can come up after this is over. I'll be here available for questions. I'll also hang out the booth for a while too. If there's something you think of, please come by. And again, take advantage of all the stuff that California Almond Board can do for you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.